Seriously, think about a time you've stood face to face with someone whose entire mission in life at that moment was to drag you into a shouting match. What actually happens when you refuse to give them that reaction they're desperately hunting for? Well, the psychological shift is completely fascinating. Let's get into it.
So, have you ever noticed something kind of strange? The very moment you stop reacting emotionally, toxic individuals don't calm down. Actually, they often become significantly more aggressive. You'd logically think that by staying completely calm, the conflict would naturally de-escalate, right? But nope. Instead, it's literally like throwing gasoline on a fire. They push harder, their tone gets way sharper, and the tension actually goes up.
Which brings us to our first core concept, the paradox of calmness, and exactly why silence sparks aggression. At first glance, this kind of escalation feels like a total mystery. I mean, if you aren't fighting back, what are they even fighting against? Well, it has everything to do with how the human mind craves control, especially in unpredictable situations. Picture this. You're just standing in your kitchen, casually making coffee, while someone is pacing the room, raising their voice, and mashing your emotional buttons harder and harder. They desperately want a reaction. When you remain composed, they escalate their behavior just to prove they still hold some influence over your emotional state. They aren't looking for a peaceful resolution, they're literally just looking to confirm they can still get under your skin.
Okay, moving right along, let's look at the hidden emotional goal. Because, spoiler alert, it is not about the argument itself. On the surface, a toxic conflict looks, fairly normal. It seems like a disagreement over specific words, facts, or differing opinions. Maybe you're arguing about how you loaded the dishwasher or an email you sent at work. But beneath that surface, that's where a dark, invisible psychological exchange is happening. It's this deep psychological drive to control the emotional atmosphere of the room. For manipulative people, the real goal isn't solving a problem. They feel powerful specifically when they can dictate exactly how you feel. To grab that control, they'll weaponize some very specific tactics designed to trigger your defensiveness. We're talking about criticizing your character instead of your actions, constant interrupting, exaggerating past mistakes, bringing up completely unrelated memories from like 5 years ago, or twisting your words just to keep the tension high. They deploy these things not to find common ground, but to deliberately yank you out of your peace and command your attention. And here's the kicker. Every single time you lose your composure and defend yourself against these traps, their tactics are working.
Psychologists actually explain this through a super interesting concept called emotional contagion. This is basically the psychological phenomenon where one person's intense emotions naturally pressure others to match that exact same emotional frequency. Manipulators rely heavily on emotional contagion. They're basically hoping their dark storm cloud energy will just infect your mind. If they're angry and chaotic, they genuinely need you to be angry and chaotic too, just to balance their own internal scales.
By making you anxious or angry, they're actually validating their own perceived power. Your frustration becomes undeniable, real-time proof that they matter, that they are impacting you. Ultimately, your emotions become their source of validation. If you get upset, they get to feel like they are the one in charge.
So, how do we counter this? That brings us to Section 3, dropping the rope and starving that psychological reward.
What actually happens to that whole dynamic when you just flat out refuse to play their game and quietly remove the emotional fuel? When you take away the exact thing they're trying to extract from you? We call this the broken button effect. When you don't react as expected, their psychological reward instantly disappears. Staying calm acts like a broken button on a machine. They keep mashing it by getting louder or acting more dramatic, but the system just doesn't work anymore. They expect a light to turn on, an alarm to ring, but instead, just silence. They push, and absolutely nothing happens. In their mind, they're expecting a psychological game of tug of war, where you pull back fiercely. But the reality? You simply let go of the rope. And suddenly, they're pulling against thin air, and their entire strategy completely falls apart. Their whole game relies 100% on your active participation to keep the tension alive. Without it, the struggle literally just disappears. Now, let's talk about how to actually do this in Section 4, the power of the pause, and mastering your biological reaction. Look, logic is great, but applying this in the heat of the moment, it is incredibly hard. Your nervous system is biologically wired to defend itself when attacked. When someone questions your worth, your brain is screaming at you to fight back.
but emotionally intelligent people use a very specific internal process to intercept their own biology before it gains momentum. Step 1. Simply notice the biological reaction preparing you to fight. Step 2. Create a small intentional pause. And Step 3. In that pause, deliberately choose your response instead of reacting blindly. You don't let the other person dictate your actions, you choose them yourself.
Check out this breakdown. When you react impulsively, your underlying motivation might be defending yourself, but the outcome only feeds that toxic dynamic. You're basically handing them exactly what they want on a silver platter. However, when you utilize intentional silence, your underlying motivation shifts completely to protecting your peace. And the incredible outcome here is that it interrupts the emotional contagion entirely and halts the manipulator right in their tracks. A deliberate pause is a far, far more powerful shield than trying to craft the perfect comeback. Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, redefining true strength. This is all about emotional sovereignty over volume. See, real psychological strength is maintaining control of your emotions when someone else actively tries to take that control away. Society so often tells us that the loudest person wins, but true strength isn't measured by how loudly you defend yourself or how sharp and witty your counter-arguments are. Not at all. It is measured by your absolute refusal to be pulled into their chaos. Every single time you choose intention over anger, you're sending this incredibly quiet, totally unbreakable message to the toxic person. My emotions are not yours to command. You aren't just ignoring them, you're actively reclaiming your autonomy. And when they finally realize they can no longer control your emotions, they begin to lose the influence they thought they had over you entirely. It's a real game changer. So I want to leave you with this thought. Have you ever stayed totally calm during an argument and noticed the other person become even more frustrated? Reflect on your own experiences with this, because recognizing it is the first step. Remember, protecting your peace is the ultimate psychological victory. So the next time you find yourself stuck in the storm of someone else's chaos, just master the pause, drop the rope, and watch just how undeniably powerful your calm can truly be. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.